We all know how typical Christmas movies go. Usually, they're very high on sentiment, optimism, and try to evoke that wholesome feeling associated with Christmas, to varying degrees of success. And then, of course, there's the anti-Christmas movie, which goes out of its way to be the exact opposite of Christmas movies in every way possible. As in, instead of Santa coming down the chimney with presents, he'd be a serial killer disguised as Santa coming on down with an axe. Now, personally, I'm not a huge fan of these types of movies, as they often feel too mean-spirited and as if they're trying to tear down Christmas wholesomeness just for the sake of it without saying anything worth saying. I mean, a movie like Bad Santa works in this regard where others don't, because it actually still tells a pretty touching story in spite of it tearing down most other Christmas tropes mercilessly, striking a delicate balance between playing it straight and deconstructing. But that aside, there is one anti-Christmas movie I've seen that was not only really good, but might actually be one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. And that would be the mostly forgotten 1942 movie, The Man Who Came to Dinner. But I would just like to warn all of you that there will be spoilers ahead. So if you'd rather watch the movie and experience all of its surprises for yourself first, you should probably click off the video and come back to it after you've seen it. You have been warned. And also, this will be one of my more opinion-based videos, so if you're looking for something more objective or a professional review, this might not be the video for you. Okay, so in case that title does sound familiar to you, that's because the movie was based on a play which has had a few famous revivals, one of which even starred Nathan Lane. But for the purposes of this video, I'm talking strictly about the 1942 movie adaptation, which had Monty Woolley reprise his career-defining role from the original play as Sheridan Whiteside, alongside the great Bette Davis as his co-lead. Yes, you heard that right. This was one of the few comedies that starred Bette Davis, as well as have her playing a rather wholesome and infinitely patient, if rather cynical, secretary to Mr. Whiteside. And just for a quick plot summary for those of you who don't know, The Man Who Came to Dinner is about an obnoxious and selfish radio personality visiting the home of Ohio social climbers as a publicity stunt, only to break his hip and find himself stuck living in their house until he recovers. Taking over the house and terrorizing everybody he comes across, things get complicated when his loyal secretary of 10 years falls in love with a local newspaper man, and fearing that he'd have to replace her, conspires with an actress friend to break them up. But after seeing how much this hurts her, Whiteside must find a way to make things right. And Christmas is a constant in the background of the entire movie. At one point, they even claim it's Whiteside's personal holiday, and the climax even takes place on the day itself. And that's one of the reasons the movie works so well. It's not a Christmas movie per se, and isn't an active deconstruction of Christmas movies. However, what's going on throughout the movie is the perfect contrast to the wonderful feelings Christmas is supposed to evoke. It's especially funny towards the end, where it's Christmas morning and everybody in the house is thoroughly miserable and clearly having the worst Christmas of their entire lives. In other words, the Christmas spirit is more used as a tool in this case to make everything going on even funnier, and it's the exact opposite of what Christmas should feel like. And all of this is only punctuated by a perfect cast. Betty Davis plays her part as a cynical and patient secretary much better than you might expect, throwing out the one-liners as well as any born and bred comedian. She even gets to put her dramatic chops to good use for the scenes where she confronts Whiteside over how selfish he's been. And there's also Grant Mitchell, who plays Mr. Stanley, the owner of the home Mr. Whiteside has taken over, fantastically, having to put up with his constant insults and inconsideration, frequently losing his temper without any viable recourse. Seriously, when he gets mad, the audience is in for a good time. And there's also his wife, Mrs. Stanley, played wonderfully by Billy Burke as a socialite desperate to climb through the ranks and impress Mr. Whiteside, only to be insulted by him at every turn, and yet still defends him over her husband. Really, there's social climbers, and then there's this woman who will put up with pretty much anything he says or does because she believes it'll improve their situation. And there are plenty of other characters whose parts are also played perfectly, but there's one standout in this case that I feel must be mentioned. And that would be Monty Woolley himself as Mr. Whiteside. Honestly, this is one of the best castings for a comedy I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of perfect comedic castings out there. His timing, his insults, his whole demeanor, everything about it is simply flawless. And, of course, the dialogue he's given only makes the whole thing even better. Seriously, the creativity of the insults, along with the way Woolley delivers them, is nothing short of perfect. But he's also able to pull off his more sympathetic moments just as well, easily selling Mr. Whiteside as a bitter man who looks out for old number one, but does ultimately have a good heart deep down. He easily steals the entire movie away from an already extremely talented cast, with only one person coming anywhere close to matching Woolley's hilarity. And that would be in the form of Jimmy Durante as Whiteside's unlikely friend Banjo. He may only show up towards the end of the movie to try and help him fix the mess he had caused, but he makes every moment count, to the point that he almost steals the movie away from Woolley by the time it's all said and done. To put it simply, this is a very funny movie, and is full of cast members who give it their all, with a script full of wit, clever jokes, and just general hilarity. It honestly makes for really good viewing. Now sure, its tone might be completely at odds with a typical Christmas movie, but in this case that's part of what makes it so funny. Mr. Whiteside presents himself as a friendly, almost Santa-like figure, but in private he is anything but jolly old Saint Nick. And his antics, combined with everybody's over-the-top reactions to them, might just make for one of the most underrated comedies out there. Now, keep in mind that I am by no means a professional critic, and that's just personally how I feel about it, but I still think it's a great comedy regardless. It may not be a literal anti-Christmas movie, but it nonetheless has all the hallmarks of one, and in my humble opinion, may just be one of the best out there. Okay, I think that's everything I have to say on that. So now I want to hear what you guys think. Do you believe The Man Who Came to Dinner is a hilarious movie and a great anti-Christmas movie? Or do you think it's not nearly as good as I'm saying it is and that I'm giving it way too much credit? Please let me know in the comments below. And remember, this was only how I personally felt about the movie. You don't have to agree with it and think that I was completely wrong about everything I said if you'd like. And thank you all for watching. I very much appreciate it. And I hope to see you all next time.